Okay, we're very lucky to have Brian Kemble come down from Ruth Bancroft Botanical Garden. And I want to also thank the San Jose Society, Cactus and Succulent Society, as well as Bill Wilk for helping bring Brian here together. We've really relied on our affiliates to help mitigate travel expenses and costs. And thank you, Bill, and thank you, San Jose Cactus and Succulent Society. Shout out to them. I'm going to keep this super short because this is going to be a fun trip with a few aloes, Brian assures me. And so the wonderful curator that has been the curator for as long as I can remember and as long as there probably has been a curator at Ruth Bancroft Garden is my good friend, and you're going to love him, Brian Kemble.
Well, thank you, Kelly. So my talk today is on Ethiopia, and I went to Ethiopia specifically to see the aloes there. I've been a long-time aloe grower and very interested in aloes, and have seen them many times in Southern Africa and in Madagascar, but not in Ethiopia. And I knew quite a few aloes are native to Ethiopia, and I thought it'd be wonderful to see them there. And so 4 of us put together this trip. And that was me and Walker Young from the Ruth Bancroft Garden, and Tom Cole from Cold Spring Aloes in Santa Barbara, and John Miller, the president of the Institute for Aloe Studies. So all of us being very interested in aloes, it was definitely organized around seeing aloes in habitat. But of course, when you go to see aloes in habitat, you see everything else that grows there too. And there are a lot of wonderful things in Ethiopia, such as euphorbias and stapeliads. So we'll see a lot of that too. Now, when I put this program together, I had it in mind to use a pointer. But here I am in the middle of the room with the screens on either side. So I'm going to use my pointer to point out what I'm going to do so that you'll understand, since I can't use the pointer as I go along. So here I go. Okay, I'll do one side of the room and then the other, since we have 2 screens here. So that's Ethiopia, and that is the Rift Valley coming right down through there. And so I'm going to start out with the southern area here, and then go up in this area more towards Somalia, and around here, and then up to the Bale Mountains there, and then out the Akhmar Mountains this way to Dire Dawa, and then do the central area, that's Addis Ababa there in the middle, the Central Highlands, and then up here finally. So that's the rough sequence of where I'm going. Now, to explain to the other side of the room, so I called the talk from Mega to Ankober. And Mega is down here in the southern part near Kenya. And so I'll start out with this area here, and then go up this way, and in that area, and then up to the Bale Mountains, very high mountains above the tree line up here, and then follow the Akhmar Mountains out here to Dire Dawa, and then that's Addis Ababa there in the middle, and the Central Highlands up in here, and then going up this way. So that's the area that I'm going to cover. Now, if I can only figure out how to advance this, that'll be a good step in the right direction. When I push that, push that. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's the map. Okay, now starting down by Mega, we had Euphorbia adjurana. So there are lots of tree euphorbias all up and down East Africa, from eastern part of South Africa all the way up to the Horn of Africa. And this one is Adjurana. I love the way that the lower branches are shed and leaves these characteristic silhouettes against the sky. And close up on the right showing the Cyathea. And also growing there is Aloe rive. And so this is not an uncommon aloe there. Has a much branched inflorescence, but rather diffuse panicles. And this actually can grow in California. There's a plant at UC Berkeley that's been there for decades. And Aloe secundiflora grows there too. This is a relatively common aloe in East Africa. It has shiny, glossy leaves and a much branched inflorescence. The name secundiflora refers to the way that the flowers are in a row on one side of the axis of the inflorescence rather than distributed around it. And there it is in cultivation at the Ruth Bancroft Garden, in flower on the left, and a close-up showing the flowers on the right, and you can see how they're all lined up. Euphorbia actinoclada, a ground-hugging euphorbia. It's not a medusoid. It does grow with a central head and cylindrical arms, but it's spiny and not in the medusoid group, but really attractive plant, and I like it when the red soil gets in the middle and makes like a green star on the red sand. Plectranthus species. Not having been to Ethiopia before, I was impressed by how many floristic connections that there are between there and Southern Africa. So Plectranthus are very common in Southern Africa. I've seen them many places in South Africa, and here we run into them again in Ethiopia. Now, when it comes to identifying the species, there is a nice book by Ernst van Jaarsveld on Plectranthus in Southern Africa, but the Ethiopian species are not in there, so I just had to put SPA on there. And a second species growing at the same spot. Here you can see very succulent leaves and very fuzzy leaves. And then on the right is a senecio, a bit goat-chewed, but you can see it's a senecio. Aloe javellana, near a town called Yabelo. So the spellings in Ethiopia are very inconsistent. They weren't named in English. They were named in various languages, Ethiopian languages, and how they are transferred into English varies. So Yabelo could be Y-A-B-E-L-O, Y-E-V-L-L-A, or various other spellings. But this is a wonderful aloe with the flowers. You can see stripy and more or less red at the bud stage, but turning much more yellow as they open. And cotyledon barbii. Now, cotyledons are all over the place in South Africa, but here they are up in Ethiopia too. This one's just done flowering. You can see on the right the spent flowers, but obviously cotyledon flowers and very succulent leaves. And Euphorbia boronensis, at least that's as close a match as I could come to. You can see the manner of growth on the left and a close-up showing the stems on the right, a little bit scarred up, but hey, it's a rough life out there. And Spathulapetalum species. So Spathulapetalum is recognized by some people as a separate genus and put into Caralluma by others. But the Spathulapetalums are quite unique because when they come into flower, the stem tip elongates into this long, tall inflorescence with little dangly flowers, and they look very different from other plants that you might put in Caralluma, and so I'm perfectly happy to call them Spathulapetalum. And here's a comifera. So comiferae are notable for their wonderful peeling bark, and here you can see on the right where the bark peels away, there's kind of a greenish underbark. And Cissus quadrangulata, a relatively common species, named for its square stems and cross-section. And you can see the little tiny flower clusters on the right. Aloe and here on the right you can see a termite mound. There are termite mounds all over the place in southern Ethiopia, some of them very old and some of them colonized by plants. And another aloe in that same area, Aloe calidophylla. This one's notable for the way that the leaves recurve and touch the ground. Almost looks like it's going to walk away. And here's a Eulophia species, so we have those up there too. This area is rather overgrazed, and the Eulophia is kind of having its roots exposed a little bit, but hanging in there. And an Albuca species. Now I have a book on the lilies of Ethiopia that lists Albucas, but it didn't show this one. But I thought it was wonderful with these wavy leaves and these green flowers. A lovely plant, but I don't know what species it might be. And here we have a Caralluma or Spathulopedilum on the left, no flowers, so I wasn't sure. And on the right, a Sansevieria species. There are lots of Sansevierias, not only in Ethiopia, but in neighboring Kenya, Tanzania as well. And then a little bit farther north was Euphorbia amplophylla. This area is a little bit more lush. And you can see that when the new growth comes out, there are large leaves present, which are later on shed. But the undulating stems are very attractive, Euphorbia amplophylla. Okay, now I'm starting on the second leg, going back down to Mega and going northeast. This is going more towards Somalia and a relatively dry area. And here we have Aloe rive, again on the left, with a shot showing what the countryside looks like, and then Kalanchoe lanceolata in the center and on the right, close up of the flowers. So Kalanchoes again. Kalanchoe is an interesting genus in the Crassula family, and it's most species rich in Madagascar, but Africa has almost as many species as Madagascar does. Not as concentrated perhaps, but very wonderful. And this one's lanceolata. And a monodenium ellenbeckii forma caulopodium, and the hood-like flowers visible on the right-hand side. An erythrina species. East Africa has many wonderful erythrina species, some of them with wonderful knobbly trunks. And here you see the tree on the left and a close-up showing the trunk with its little projections on the right-hand side. Unfortunately, not in flower. They're always beautiful when they are in flower. And then, not too far away, a different, very wonderful species of erythrina. This one with a white trunk. Looks like it's frosted white with the little black spikes sticking out from the white. And here we have a tortoise on the right and Adenium somalense on the left. So Adenium somalense is pretty widespread in northeastern Africa, occurs in Somalia, as the name implies, but also in Ethiopia. And this individual here is the largest one that we saw, but not in flower. But it gives you an idea. That's about 10 or 12 feet tall. And a sterculia, and there's the flower in the middle, the bark on the right, and the whole tree on the left. So again, I'm familiar with sterculias in southern Africa, so it was nice to see them up here in Ethiopia as well. Sterculiaceae used to be its own family, but now they put it in with the hibiscus family, Malvaceae. And that's John Miller standing next to Sansevieria. This was a nice big clump of it. They were not in flower. That's just a weedy thing growing next to it, whose flowers you see there. But really good-sized clumps of Sansevieria. Okay, now I'm moving to the Bitata rocks and surrounding area, and this is just a little bit northeast of Mega. So here is Aloe citrina. That's Tom Cole standing next to the Aloe citrina. They were not in flower, but you can see how tall that inflorescence is and how beautiful those leaves are. So it's semi-glossy, highly spotted, and the citrina refers to the yellow flowers. And here we have, growing with the citrina, Euphorbia meridionalis on the left, and then Spathulopedilum arachnoideum in the middle and on the right. And then we came to an area that was wheat fields, and there was this huge ficus tree, and I stopped to take a picture, and as I walked around, I realized that it was hollow in the middle. It's actually, I think, two trees entwined together, sort of making one tree, but a beautiful big old ficus tree. And this is a species that's really, really threatened, Alloparvidens. So this area of Ethiopia in the southeast is near to Somalia. And as you probably know, Somalia hasn't been a functioning country for quite some time, and there are millions of refugees who have fled, and a lot of them are in refugee camps in this part of Ethiopia. So there are these sort of little huts covered with cardboard and plastic, and then goats, and then the refugees living in the huts. And it's not a sustainable environment. So they have to have trucks that come in with water and food to feed all the refugees. But meanwhile, their goats are busy running around, chomping up the landscape, and they're much too dense to support that many goats. You know, it's just destroying the landscape. And this poor aloe has very few individuals left, and it's really hard to find one that isn't stepped on and in bad shape. But it's a beautiful aloe with glossy leaves, and I hope somewhere there is a population that's farther away from the goats and hanging in there. And here's a Sansevieria species. Again, I was not able to identify it, but beautiful markings. And a Commiferous species, this one with really nice white peely bark showing the glaucous green underneath. Nice twisty stems. And there are rock outcrops here and there in the landscape, so we went up on top of one, and that's what it looks like looking out across the countryside. And Adenia venenata grew up on top of the rock. Very large base. I'd say that base is about 7 or 8 feet tall, and then it goes into a vine that climbs up in the surrounding trees. And Euphorbia candelabrum, again with a termite mound on the left, and showing you how large these get, a more medium-sized plant in the middle, and a close-up showing the stems on the right. Another Kalanchoe species, this one with fuzzy leaves, almost looks like Kalanchoe beharensis from Madagascar, but it is not that, an Ethiopian similar-looking species. And this was a Sansevieria with lots of stolons going out everywhere, growing on an eroded termite mound, and has quite taken over. Another Euphorbia species on the left, and Cyanotus somaliensis on the right, so that's in the Camelinaceae. This is in cultivation, and very furry leaves, but looking very closed up here in dry conditions in the Ethiopian countryside. And Aloe rugosafolia, we came to really nice colonies of this, and in full bloom. So you can see the purplish color of the leaves, and the clusters that it makes, and that very attractive branched inflorescence. And there's a close-up on the right showing the flowers. Really nice plant. And Euphorbia tescorum, that's the whole plant on the left, and a close-up showing the stem with the yellow cyathea on the right. Really nice to see these things in habitat, and see the context in which they grow, which is really wonderful with the rocks and the other associated vegetation. Ethiopia is a very diverse place vegetatively. And finally, we came to Adenium somalense in flower. So these were not nearly as big as one we'd seen earlier, but the flowers are spectacular. And there's just a selection of 4 different plants and the coloration of the flowers. I really like the pickety ones where the edge is darker. And a Circulia growing there too, that peeling bark with the patches of greens and reds and browns and so on, typical Circulia. And Pyranocanthum alvifolia, and that's Walker kneeling down next to one to show you how huge that caudex is. It's just fantastic. So that's a vining plant. On the left-hand picture, you see the big lump on the left, and then note the vine that comes out from it and goes across and wiggles around and then climbs up that tree on the right. And then there's a second one right at the base of the tree that's also climbing up the tree. So the 2 of them found the same tree to climb up. But they are just immense caudexes. And just showing close up how they look. And we came to a wonderful colony of Aloperote. It's not always yellow, but this was a yellow population, actually a little bit green striped on yellow, with a tall inflorescence, glossy leaves, beautiful, beautiful plants. I was so happy to find this in flower. Okay, now next we're going to follow the Akhmar Mountains going east from Addis Ababa and out towards Somalia north. So, oh no, I take it back. This is the Bali Mountains. So we went over an enormous 14,000-foot mountain and on the way there, and this is going up the mountain where it's very high rainfall, and these Nepophia isotifolias grow there in yellow and orange. And a salvia species in full bloom with very beautiful broad leaves. And then getting up to the high part above the tree line, that's the giant lobelia, Lobelia rhynchopetalum. And John standing next to it, he's about 6'5", so that's a good-sized plant. And then in flower on the left, and a close-up showing the tiny flowers. You kind of have to peel away the bracts to see the little flowers, but that's in full bloom. And you can see what a lunar landscape it is up there. It's just looks like sagebrush plains with giant lobelias. It's very unworldly. And I had hoped that up there in the high mountains I would find aloes that were really good and cold tolerant, but there were no aloes at all up there, but there was Nepophia. So this would get icy in the cold season, and it likes to grow in a little bit damp areas. You can see the silhouette at the against the sky on the left, and that's the giant lobelia. Okay, and now we're going north from the Bali Mountains, and we're going to follow the Akhmar Mountains eastward. So first in the plains, aloe trichosantha. And this is an aloe that's beautiful and spotted as a baby plant. You can see on the top right, but it loses its spots when it grows up. And trichosantha refers to the fuzzy flowers, so they are like velvet. And there's the flowers in the middle. And Euphorbia nigrispinoides. We stopped because we saw this beautiful rocky hill with euphorbias on it, and got pictures, and it turned out that that was the type locality for Euphorbia nigrispinoides. So there you see the plants on the left, close up showing the branches on the right, and the cyathea in the middle. And Spathulapetalum peckii on the left, so you can see how the inflorescences emerge from the top of the plants and the little dangly flowers hang down from the inflorescence. And on the right is Echinopsis montana, a much smaller stapeliad, and its wonderful flowers with very long corolla lobes. And Desmodorcas speciosa, so these two are related to Carolumas and included in Caroluma by some people, but they have a very different habit, very chunky stems, large growing plants with rounded heads of flowers. So this one, you can see the flower heads on the left-hand picture that have not opened, and you can see the spent flowers starting to form their seed horns on the right. And in the middle is a cluster where the flowers are just starting to open. So you can see they're yellow on the inside, but speckled purple on the outside, but quite showy. And Caroluma socotrana. So this is named for the island of Socotra, where it does occur, but it occurs here in Ethiopia as well, with these beautiful blood red flowers. And another Spathulapetalum turneri, and there you see the plant on the left, and its long inflorescences and the interesting purple flowers with light speckles dangling down from the floral branches, as you can see on the right. More stapeliads, Edithcolia grandis on the left. I wish that had been in flower. That's a spectacular flower when it is. And Echinopsis damaniana on the right, maybe less than a showy plant, but it does have wonderful little star-like flowers. And Desmodorcas retrospeciens, or Caroluma retrospeciens, with these big clusters of black, foul-smelling flowers. And there's a close-up. So on the left-hand cluster, you see all the buds, looking like sort of padded cushions with a couple of open flowers. And on the right, when more flowers have opened, and it really smells foul, but these amazing black flowers. And aloe macrocarpa. This is a pretty widespread aloe in North Africa in the maculate or saponaria group, with those swollen bases on the perianth, as you can see on the right-hand side. This is the only plant that we came to, but I was very glad we did get to see it. Okay, and now we're heading on out towards Harar, out the Akhmar Mountains, and we came to Aloe downsiana. So that's the plant on the left, and its fuzzy flowers on the right. We saw lots of nice clumps of plants, but had a hard time finding a flower. We finally did find one in flower, but unfortunately it was right in the middle of the town latrine. So you had to sort of tiptoe your way through the turds in order to get there, but fortunately there was a flower. And this was a big deal for me, Aloe harlana. So I've grown this plant for many years, I've hybridized with it, and admired it greatly, and to see it in habitat was, for me, transcendent. So here we have Aloe harlana in flower on the left, a close-up of the flower in the middle, and a variegated plant on the right. Kelly would be happy if I had packed this up and brought it home, but no, it was not happening. And then getting to Dire Dawa, we went out into the plains around the town to see Aloe McLaughlini, and there it is on the left, and Sansevieria ehrenbergii, one of the larger growing, very chunky-leaved Sansevierias on the right. And there's a close-up showing Aloe McLaughlini and how beautiful and glossy spotty it is, much resembling others in the Somaliensis group, and then a cluster of them on the right. And another Desmodorcas. These are just fantastic plants. And this one has yellow-green flowers with speckles and a little tuft of purple hairs at the tip of each one of the corolla lobes. Just wonderful. And a comifera species, this one looks a lot like Comifera cua that you see on Socotra, but grows a little bit taller, but with this wonderful peely bark, wider than tall. And Lediboria somaliensis, this was just a lucky find. I was walking around in this rocky area, and tucked between the rocks was this little Lediboria. And there you can see the inflorescence on the right. The flowers are pretty colorless until the petals peel back and those purple stamens come out and really are wonderful to see. And yet another Desmodorcas edithae. So there you see the plant on the left, and all those little scars on the plant are where the previous flower clusters had been. But on the right is an open flower cluster, in this case very rugose, reddish purple flowers with, again, little tufts at the tip of each corolla lobe. And we came to Aloe McLaughlini again, this in north of Dirirawa, and here we saw flowers. So you can see they're quite short and chunky, not as long as somaliensis flowers are. You do see McLaughlini often in cultivation, or plants labeled that are not McLaughlini, that are actually somaliensis, which does have a longer flower, but the two are related. And stopping at the little village of Harla, which is where Harlana gets its name from, we found that there were red and yellow flowered plants there. So here's one of the yellow ones. And also Aloe megalacantha grew there, quite large growing. These get to be about 6 feet tall with these big branched inflorescences, very, very showy. So that's a red flowered individual. And a yellow flowered individual. The yellow flowered ones have purplish tips on them. Very nice effect. And here's Euphorbia polyacantha and Aloe harlana growing together. And so this is the old trading center in the area, Harer, and so these cobblestone narrow streets. You can see the shop signs in Amharic, and the town has a big wall all around it, and there's a door in the wall, and traditionally they would open that door in the evening and put out food for the hyenas. And so the hyenas are used to coming up to the town at feeding time, and now they don't do it through the door anymore, but they do have a gathering place where you can go and see the hyenas come. And actually, if you pay them a little bit of money, they'll give you a skewer with meat on it, and you can hold it out and have the hyena come eat it off. I didn't do that, but a lot of people did. Okay, and now we're going to go to the center of the country, north of Addis Ababa in the Central Highlands. And here you can see it's much lusher. And here is a cissus species with rather swollen stems, you can see on the right, and wonderful little flowers you can see on the left. And here is Cyanotus longifolia and the Camelinaceae with these wonderful purple petals and little star-like stamens. And then on the right, that is an aloe we'll see later, but just showing what the countryside looks like. And then we went to the Portuguese bridge. So the story here was that this bridge was built by Portuguese soldiers in the 1500s or something or another. Well, it's not true at all. It's built by Ethiopians in the 1800s, but it's a nice story. But this is a river that goes through the bridge and then plunges over a cataract. It's quite beautiful and is a wonderful spot for aloes too. So this is Aloe shelpii. That's the one I showed in the previous picture. And there it is growing in clumps in habitat. And on the right shows it in flower at the Bancroft Garden. So this is one we can grow in cultivation here in California quite well. It has these red or slightly orangey red flowers, and it flowers late in the year. For us, November would be peak flowering for shelpii. So you can see how different a plant growing in sunny conditions on the right looks compared to one on an overcast day in the lush conditions in habitat on the left. Usually we'd see this the other way around. You know, the plant in cultivation looks much more lush, but not so here. And growing right there too was Huernia boleana with these wonderful cup-like flowers. And Bulbine abyssinica. Now, I think this name, Bulbine abyssinica, is applied to a lot of bulbines that have tubular leaves and clusters of yellow flowers, and they really aren't all the same thing. But here we are in Abyssinia, which is an old name for Ethiopia. So I'm going to go with Bulbine abyssinica for this one. And so in the central highlands of Ethiopia, there are lots of wonderful gorges. That's why the old name for the country was Abyssinia, the land of the abysses. And all these rivers that flow through there are all tributaries of the Blue Nile, so they all empty into the Nile eventually. But very wonderful cliffs. And growing on those cliffs is Aloe pulcherrima. So here you see a plant in flower on the left, a close-up of the flowers in the middle, and on the right, we see one growing right on the edge of the precipice. I really was not safe to take this picture. That band behind the aloe in the right-hand picture, that's a waterfall. And it plunges down about 500 feet. And had I had one little misstep, well, I'd be down there too. But fortunately, that didn't happen. And a Nepophia schimperi, growing on the, in one of the gorges. And I was very excited because it's very different from the other Nepophias we saw. So I said, oh, stop, picture of the Nepophia. Well, I was the only one who got out of the car. Nobody else cared. But I thought it was pretty cool. I liked those downturned flowers and that very tall inflorescence. Okay, and now we're going to go from Addis Ababa up a little bit to the northeast to Ankober. On the way, we saw Aloe debrana, and this grows near the town of Debre Berhan, and in Reynolds' book, it's Aloe berhana, but it got renamed to Aloe debrana, and has these large rosettes of semi-glossy leaves and beautiful glossy red flowers, as you can see in the picture. And coming to a wetland, we saw a crinum in bloom on the left and Nepophia insignis in the middle and on the right. So that varied from pure white to sort of salmon-tinged whitening as it opened. And this is what it looks like in this area. This is the Amharic area, and the houses tend to be in clusters with very neat plowed fields all around. It looks very almost like the English countryside. You know, it looks not third world at all. It's very neat and orderly. And here's looking out over the hills going towards Ankober. And coming up to Ankober, Aloe ankoberensis. So this was a major thing for me to see Aloe ankoberensis in habitat. So you can see these very thick leaves growing on steep hillsides in the mist. This is up in the mountains where it's very misty. It's hard to get a clear day there. And you can see on the right-hand side how the inflorescence goes down and then curls back and goes up at the tip. And a close-up of a rosette on the left, and growing with it a beautiful purple-flowered Plectranthus species. And thanks to Jeff Chemnick, I got this nice picture of it in flower at his garden, so you can see what it looks like in full flower in cultivation, and a close-up of the flowers on the right. And growing with it was Aeonium leucoblepharum. Now we think of aeoniums as being plants from the Canary Islands, but Ethiopia has them too. So apparently there was a floristic connection between Northeast Africa and Northwest Africa and the Canary Islands. And as Africa has dried more and more and more, the whole middle of that floristic connection is gone. But you have aeoniums at either end and dracaenas at either end. So there's a little bit of floristic connection left over from when the vegetation went right across North Africa. So here we have Aeonium leucoblepharum. And another cyanotus, Cyanotus polyrhiza. I love these little cyanotus species with their interesting flowers. And Knaphofia foliosa with yellow flowers. And going up over a pass, we came to gelada monkeys. People sometimes think they're baboons. They're not baboons. They're a true monkey. They have a tail. And they like the mountain areas and are very unique looking. And then Alosinana. So this is related to Alocamperi. Grows in big clumps. These tall branching inflorescences and beautiful flowers, mainly red, but a little bit yellowing as the flowers open. And there's a close-up of the rosette of Alosinana on the left, and Kalanchoe marmorata, another one of the kalanchoes that you find in Ethiopia. And here is a Knaphofia species I could not identify, but very attractive, and you can see the rolling green hills of central Ethiopia. And another Knaphofia species, this one with very fiery red-orange flowers and rather short leaves for a Knaphofia. And a gladiolus. So here's another plant. I'm used to seeing these in South Africa, but gladiolus grows all the way up to Ethiopia. And this one is Delenii. And the flowers have these beautiful red speckles and stripes on them. And this is one of the wonderful features of gladiolus. The flowers have incredibly beautiful markings. And so many of the ones that have been hybridized and brought into cultivation, they have emphasized flower size over everything and lost all the beautiful markings in order to get a large flower. And I think the markings is one of the most special things about gladiolus. Alocamperi, this one has been in cultivation for a long time. It used to be called Aloeru, and this one's well represented in cultivation with these speckly leaves. And Elopercrassa, not so common in cultivation, with much wider leaves and some glaucousness and dark teeth on the edge of the leaf. And Elomonticola, so the left-hand pictures are in habitat, a younger plant below and an older plant above it. And then in the middle is Monticola in cultivation at the Bancroft Garden in flower, and on the right, close-up of the yellow flowers. I would say it must be closely related to Aloe harlana because the young plant looks a lot alike, and even the flower looks very similar. Okay, well, anyway, that is the end of my program, and I would be glad to take any questions. So Jeff's asked me, how did I identify the euphorbias? Well, when I got back from my trip, I knew what the aloes were, because that's what I went to see in the first place. But all these other things I would run into, it's a problem, how do you identify them? Now, euphorbias, there's lots of literature on, but there is not one giant book of euphorbias where you can look it up from A to Z. So I went through all 10 volumes of the Euphorbia Journal and tried to figure them out. That's how I did it. With the Stapeliads, there's plenty of Stapeliad literature to look up those, but there were other things that I would run into that were really hard to identify, and so I wound up with SPA for some of them.
We have a special gift for you, and you should open it now, I've been told.
I should open it now. Okay.
So one of our members is super talented and makes plants in an artful way. And
Wow.
So
Beautiful.
hope everybody can see that, but take a look at them. And
So it's
it
not
was
euphorbia sap.
it was actually an aloe hybrid, so it's very cool. I wanted to say thank you, Brian, for making it here. I saw some plants that I've had in my collection and never knew where they grew, and it was very, very nice. Really appreciate it. Thank you. We have about a 20-minute break, so take your time. We reconvene with Elizabeth Sarnes.